Yeah, Freilich and Purim from Yerushalayim Yer HaKodesh. It's Shushan Purim, Tavshin Pei Vav, and Zeicha to be here during B'Shas Milchama. We should be Zeicha that this should be the final Milchama against Amalek, and Mashiach can come. B'Heira. We should have B'Suras Taivas by Alamin. We're up to Nun Beis Amid Aleph. We're a few lines from the top. Okay. Tanar Rabbanon. Par Helam Davish El Tzibor Usiri Avodas Kechavim. Right? Who does it come from? We've been discussing that, say, where the Kohen Gadol died, we had a machlokes between Reb, if it wasn't Mano Saman Tachtav, you had a machlokes whether it's brought from the Tzibur, according to Reb Shimon, it's brought from the Tzibur, according to Reb Yehuda, it's brought from the Yarshim. So continuing along that theme, we want to know, right, if Par Helam Davish Shal Tzibur, where it didn't Avera, who would go ahead what, and would you bring it? It would come from the Tzibur, or would it come from what? From at which point in time would it come? Anyway, sorry for that. So again, continuing the discussion, like at which point we're discussing where does the certain kabbanas come from? So you have the par helam double shel tzibur. Let's say Bezdin blew it, and a psak of what of that'd be a chi of karis, and the tzibur acted upon it. We saw this in Masechta Hariyas. Or the Syria avodas kechavim, they blew up psak and avodas zara, and it's really a seir that they would bring, and these were chatas pinimius. So did you have a collection from the tzibur or betchila magvin lahem div Reb Yehuda upon need? It would if it happened, they would go ahead and collect at that time. Those are the words of Reb Yehuda. Reb Shimon the funds for these kabbanis would come from the Trumas Alishkan. We learned the opposite. Rabbi Yehuda says it comes from the Trumas Alishka, and Rav Shimon says it comes upon need. So, and the Gemara wants to know, Haiminayu Achrita, which one is the last one? It's important to know because Machlokes Rabbi Yehuda and Rav Shimon, the halacha is always like Rabbi Yehuda. The halacha of Rav Shimon will be in the future, but the halacha is always going to Rabbi Yehuda. So it's important to know, are we going according to the first one? And according to Rabbi Yehuda, you'd collect upon need, or according to the second one, according to Rabbi Yehuda, you'd collect from the tzibur. So it's very important to know which one came first. That's the most question is. So, Lema Kamaisa Achrita. Let's say the previous one was the last one. In other words, the Rabbi Yehuda said that it came from upon need, and Rav Shimon said it came from the tzibur. Why would you say that? Because the Shamina Rav Shimon, because we heard that Rav Shimon, the Chayish Lepshia, he's Chayish for negligence, that whether people might not come up with the funds or not. Where did you see that? We saw it actually in yesterday's daf, where if the Kohen Gadol died and they didn't point another one, and Besin was mitaking that what? That it should come from the tzibur. That it should come from the tzibur. So the Gemara had asked the Chayra, you see that what? It was that wasn't upon the tzibur, it was upon the individual. And we said, since we saw that the individuals were being paisheya, and if they weren't bringing the kabbanis, this is talking about the Menachos Tavitin. It's talking about the Menachos Tavitin. So we saw Rav Shimon made a takana that what it was supposed to be on the Yarshim, and since they don't pay Shea, they put it back on the device of the Kedin. So you see a Chayish Lepshia. So the Mela over here, let's say that Reb Shimon would say it's on the tzibur to bring it because he would Chayish Pshia that if there was a Par Helam Davish Al Tzibur and the Chia was to go ahead and pay for the individual and the people themselves, the B'chayish Lepshia. So using that svara, it will make sense that Reb Shimon is the one who says it comes from the tzibur, and Rabbi Yehuda is the one who says it comes from the at the time of the need, based upon Reb Shimon B'chayish Lepshia. Only Rav Ashi, afilu tema basrai sachrita. You have no raya. It could be the latter one is the more important one. That Rav Shimon Taka says it comes from the people, and Rabbi Yehuda would say it comes from the Trumas Alishka. Kika chayish Rav Shimon lepshia. When is Rav Shimon chayish lepshia? Is b'milsa the less kapara. Minchas chavitin doesn't have a kapara, and memela that Rav Shimon would be what is chayish lepshia because people, since they won't get a kapara from it and it's coming out of their pocket, perhaps they'll be negligent and not bring it. Begava. But milsa the isli kapara begava, but something that has a kapara such as the Helen Davish Shal Tzibor, that it's a chatos and you can need it for kapara, then l'chayish Reb Shimon l'pshia, Reb Shimon would not be chayish l'pshia, and therefore it's possible that even the individual upon need would bring it, and memela you have no raya which one is correct. The first Baisa where Rabbi Yehuda says that it goes according to the need, or the second Baisa where Rabbi Yehuda would said it goes comes from the comes from the Lishka of the Chumas Lishka. My Havila, bottom line, since you can't bring a raya either way, what's the halacha? So Amalei Rabbi Zuti Ravashi Toshma, the Tanya, as Karbani Lachmi Li Shai, Reach Nichaychi, Tishmeru Lahakav Libim Moradoi, the rabbis par Helam Davishal Tzibor, Usriya Veis Kechavim, Shebayim Mitrumas Alishka, Divrei Rev Shimon. So you see, Rev Shimon is the one who says it comes from the Trumas Halishka. So Nimsa, according to this, that the latter brisa takes precedent, that Rabbi Shimon is the one that says it comes from the tzibur, and according to, meaning from the Trumas Halishka, and according to Rabbi Yehuda, we come from the individual. So therefore, begs the Shiloh, what status does the Par Helen Davishal Tzibur have? It has a din of a carbon tzibur, according to Rabbi Shimon, that it comes from the Trumas Halishka, which is the shkolim that we collect for everyone. However, according to Rabbi Yehuda, even if you're going to say that while it's a carbon tzibur, it doesn't have to come from the Trumas Halishka. It doesn't have to come from the Trumas Halishka, like the Tamid and the Oimer and other things. Minchas Chinuch says it's called a carbon shutafin. It's even since it's coming not from the Trumas Halishka, it's called a carbon hashutafin, the Par Helam Dal Shel Tzibur. Very interesting, machlekes, what its status is. But again, we're concluding that according to Rabbi Yehuda, it would come upon need, not from the Trumas Halishka, not from the Trumas Halishka. Okay. Now we said that if the Kohen Gadol died and they appointed someone, and the Kohen Gadol died and they did not appoint someone, so they have to bring Shalom, they have to bring it complete. So yesterday I learned Pshat. I learned Pshat that he died and they didn't appoint another one. And then in the afternoon you brought a whole one. I said, okay, that was Pashit. And L'chai, what did they do? They took half and they gave half. Here the Shiloh is, let's say it's the next day. The next day. So Zicha, you're gonna bring an Isarin in the morning. And the question is, do you bring another Isarin in the afternoon, or one Isarin in the morning you bring and you don't bring in the afternoon? Since the Minchas Chavitim was Isarin in total, but the Kohen Gadol was alive, you brought half in the morning, half in the afternoon. Over here, where you bring in Isarin Shalem, does it go ahead and you say the halacha is you bring it whole. There's no kohen gadol to divide it, so you bring the whole thing in the morning and nothing in the afternoon. Or no, you bring an asarin in the morning and a asarin in the afternoon. That's the Gemara Shaila at hand. Says the Gemara, "Ushleima ha'isakrev Am Rab Chia bar Abba, Boy Reb Yochanan Shleima Shachris Ushleima Ben Abayim." You bring two Israelim, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. Aydilma Shleima Shachris Ubatela Ben Abayim. Maybe you bring the Shalom Shachris and you bottle the one in the afternoon. Samarav a Tashma, counting the different amount of Kahanim, Yud Gimel Kahanim were valued every day, and Shmini, the eighth Kohen, Bechavitin, he brought up the Minchas Chavitin. Ve'em Isa, and the Betela, and if you're going to go ahead and say Betela Ben Abayim, Hazimn Lemishkachas Lashmini, you're not going to have an eighth one Bechavitin, right? Hechidami, the Meis Kohen God of Loim Manu Achat Hachtov. So when the Mishnah goes ahead and lists at eight, it's always eight. It's always one bringing minchas chavitin. Also, it must be, it's not batal. It says, Amru Rabbanan Kamei de Rabbi Yirmiyah. The Rabbanan reported this in front of the great Rabbi Yirmiyah from Eretz Yisrael. Amma said, Rabbi Yirmiyah, Babloi Tipshoi, the Babylonians are fools, Mishum the Yasui, Ba'asur, the Chashucha, they live in a dark land. And Mishmaitza the Mechashkan, they say, Mishmaitza that darkens. In other words, this svara of number 8 is a means of proving that there must be, that it's not batal, is not a good svara. And what's the reason? El the Tani Shvi Silas, the seventh coin brought up to Silas for the Mincha Silas. To She, the ninth brought up Yayin, he brought in the Sacha for Yayin. Chanami Batli, you're going to tell me that, that it can't be batal. It says Minchasav and Iskayim Balayla, Minchasav and Iskayim Afilul Machar. So there's no guarantee that you have to bring it. In other words, if you're going to tell me this number is etched in stone, that there's always an 8, there's always a 7, there's always a 9, then you'd have a good raya. But it's not true, because 7 isn't always brought, because you can bring it the next day, or number 9 is also, the yayin can be the next day. Eloat, we're just learning the order. We're not learning what could be, we're learning the order. So what do you have to say? Ella, the if, meaning something uniquely different, like a tani. We're not learning because we really can do away at 7 and 9. We could bring it the next day, but we're not learning that. We're learning the norm. Hachanami regarding number 8, the bringing of the minchas chavitin, the whether the Kohen Gadol died, which is a unique situation, like Katani. We didn't learn it. Says Rabbi Yirmiyah, therefore, this raya that this Bnei Bavel wanted to bring is Mishkan Raya. Adrua Kamei the Rava, they brought back Rabbi Yirmiyah's response to Rava, who was in Bavel. Omar, he says, maybe Shusan Ami Kamayu. From the bad svaras we say in front of them, Bitivusa lo Ami Kamayu. But the good svaras we don't say in front of them. In other words, L'chayr Rabbi Yirmiyah's upshlag is a very good upshlag, and you have no raya that the mincha of the afternoon is bottle. That the mincha shel ben abayim is not bottle. That's what you wanted. Okay. And therefore, according to Rabbi Yirmiyah, it could be bottle, but again, there's just no raya from the number of kahanim that you listed in the Mishnah and Talmud. Says the Gemara, Rabbi says, 1 second. Hani nami tivusan he. What they said in front of him, right, is good, meaning that it's not bottle, but not for the reason of the Shmini. Amakra, it says soilis mincha tamid. It goes that we call the minchas chavitin. So korban Aaron ubanav asher yakriv Hashem biyomi mashach so asiras eifa soilis mincha tamid. So we go ahead and compare the minchas chavitin to the mincha that accompanied the korban tamid. Harihilacha ki minchas tamidim. Right, just like the minchas tamidim is never bottle. So to over here, it's never bottle. So l'chayra, he said a very good thing. The Gemara nonetheless says, "My havila." What's the bottom line? Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Toshma the Tanya Shleima Shachris v'Shleima Ben Abayim. You bought an Isar in the morning and you bought an Isar in the afternoon. You bought an Isar in the morning and you bought an Isar in the afternoon. So on a normal day, the Minchas Chavitin had, we saw it was compared to the Sachim, it had three loigim of it had three loigim of. So you had 3 loigin of shemen brought the minchas chavitin. In addition, you had levina. Now the question is, how much levina was brought on a normal, regular kohen, a regular minchas chavitin? How much levina was accompanying it? So we're going to have 2 days. Says the Gemara. Rabbi Yochanan, pligi bo Abi Yosi ben Dustoi v'Rabbanan. We have machloikas between Abi Yosi ben Dustoi and the Rabbanan. Abi Yosi ben Dustoi oimer, mafish lo shnei komtzim shel levina. There'd be mafish 2 complete komtzin of levina, kaimitz shachris or kaimitz ben abayim. 1 full kaimitz would accompany the minchas chavitin of the morning, and a second kaimitz would accompany the minchas chavitin in the afternoon. Rabbanan Amri, mafish lo kaimitz echad, not 2 kaimitz, only 1, and chatzi kaimitz shachris or chatzi kaimitz ben abayim. So according to Rabbi Asi, you go ahead, Rabbi Yossi, the story, you're being double the amount. You're being 2 kamtzim, 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon. According to Rabbanan, you bring 1 kaimitz, and you bring half the morning and half in the afternoon. But my kamiflagi, what's the svaras hamachlaikis? Abba Yossi, who says, Ben Dustoi, who says 2 full 1 kamitzim, savar, like ashkan chatzi kaimitz to carve. You never find the chatzi kaimitz that's burnt. You always find the full kaimitz. So therefore, you bring 2 full kamtzim. For Rabbanan Safri, like ashkan isarin, the boyishnei kamtzim. You never found any sarin that needs two kamsin. You never. So therefore, 1 kaimitz levina for the minchas chavitin. So half in the morning, half in the afternoon. So again, Rabbi Yossi ben the story being machmir 2 full kamatzim, and the chachamim, because you never find what a half a kaimitz, and the Rabbanan saying you never find a full kaimitz for any sarin. Right, you never find 2 kamatzim for you find 1 kaimitz, but not 2, and therefore half in the morning and half in the afternoon. By Rabbi Yochanan, Kohen Gadol shemes. So we just discussed the regular minchas chavitin. What we discuss now is the machlokes in Rabbi Yossi ben Dustoi and the Chachamim is speaking about regular chavitin. Now, according to the Rabbanan, when the Kohen dies and you're going to bring a full Isarin, what's the halacha? Gemara wants to know. Boy, Rabbi Yochanan, Kohen Gadol shemes v'lo minu achatachtav. So we said in that case, you're going to bring a full Isarin in the morning and a full Isarin in the afternoon. So Rabbanan, who say by the regular case you're going to bring half in the morning, half in the afternoon, chachbedul levaynasa. You're going to go ahead and double it by levayna, and therefore you'd bring a full kaimitz in the morning and a full kaimitz in the afternoon, since it's a full Isarin in the morning and a full Isarin in the afternoon. I lie or not? What's the svara? Mi aminon misoy shehuchbala salasai huchbala vaynasai. Since you're doubling on the soilus, bringing 2 esrainim rather than 1, we're going to double on the levayna, bringing 2 kamatzim instead of 1. Idilma, my de gully gully, what the Torah reveals to us by Silas reveals, my loy gully. This is Rashi. Ma de gully gully, Silas gully krab by Safa, Kidamina Lael, Rabbi Yehuda may I saw. Rabbi Yehuda says, may I saw, the word I saw, and according to Shimon, Mikol Tak there. We had Machloikas where it was from. But according, they both agree that what you're going to have bring more Silas. So therefore, that's where it revealed, right? You bring the fully sovereign. That's what we revealed. That you don't bring the half, you bring a whole. Each one had their own source, I saw, or kol tak there. But it didn't say anything about levina. So maybe you only bring half, according to Chachamim, you bring half a kaimitz in the morning and half a kodaimitz in the afternoon, even though it's double the amount of flour. Even though it's double the amount of flour. That's what the Gemara wants to know, right? So the levina, what you know, the shemen and Shemen, Bein la'Abba Yossi ben Dustai, Ubein la'Rabbana and Mahu, regarding the Kohen Gadol that dies, and you minor another, and you didn't go ahead what, and put another one tachtov, what would the halacha be what regarding the Shemen? How much Shemen would you bring? How much Shemen would you bring in that instance, right? Right. So normally he brings a three logim of shemen, and it's divided up one and a half, one and a half. That's by one isarim. But now that you're going ahead and doubling the isarim, you're bringing a full isarim, not a half. You bring a full isarim, not a half. Would you bring a three login on each one, or one and a half? That's the one I wants to know. And that shaila would be, say according to Rabbi Yossi ben Destoy and the Rabbanan. So I'm a Rabba Tashma, Hein Kametz and Hen. So there's a Mishnah on Daf Kuv Vav and Beis, and says there's five instances of kamatzim. Five instances of kamatzim. For example, a person would go ahead and he would say, Harei olai eitzim. He brings two gizur eitzim. Harei olai levaina. He shouldn't bring less than the kaimis levaina. Chamisha kamatzim heim. Person says Harei levaina, not less than that. Menadiv mincha. If a person makes menadiv a mincha, he brings with a full kaimis levaina. If a person brings a kaimis outside, he's chayiv karis, and the shtei basichim that are bought by the lachem upon. So now says the Gemara Kasha. Be paisha the shaila. Want to know what the shaila is? How much levina would one bring? Would you bring a kaimitz, or you bring double that amount? Right. That's what it wants to know according to the Rabbanan. So says the Gemara, Chamisha Tashma Chamisha Kamatzim Heim. There are five cases of kamatzim. There are five cases of kamatzim. If the kohen dies and you point another one to take his place, and the new kohen he goes ahead and he brings a kaimitz in the morning and a kaimitz in the afternoon, you're going to have sometimes you're going to have seven kamatzim. If you're going to add on, you're going to have two more. Says Gemara De'iloi Katani. We're not speaking about the specific case again where the kohen gadol dies. We're speaking about the normal cases. Yosef Rav Papa Kvamal al Shmaitza. Rav Papa was sitting in front of his Talmidim, and he said, right, and he said this Mishnah of Sharas, if this happened, did happen, the Gemara went ahead and it was Deichel Svaram. Rav Yosef Basham Rav Papa v'hamayla b'chaimitz b'chutz. We said if you go ahead and you bring a chaimitz b'chutz to e. As we said, the five kamatzim. One of them is that you do b'chutz. That's a di. You tell the person doesn't have to do the avera. So you're telling me over here, you're not discussing this case where a kohen dies because it's a di. So bringing the b'chutz is also di, and nonetheless it says what it does consider it one of the five kamatzim. So therefore, it's not a good upshlag, but you wanted to say that maybe you only bring half a kohen. It's not a full kohen. It says my havi Allah. What's the bottom line? According to Rabbanon, by the Levina, are you going to double down? And by the Shemen, what's the din by according to both? Rav Nachman by Yitzchak Tashma Tanya. Kohen Gadol Shemes v'lo mina achatachta. If he dies and you didn't appoint another one to bring the Michas Chavitim, so what do we say? We saw in the Yom Aleph Shleima b'Shachris v'Shleima bein Arbayim. You're going to bring a Shleima b'Shachris and a Shleima bein Arbayim. You're going to bring a fully Sarin in the morning and a fully Sarin in the afternoon. You're not going to go ahead and divide it up. You're not going to go ahead and divide it up. Umafishin la shnei kamatzim, and you're going to be mafish two kamatzim, like Rav Yossi ben Destoy. Kaimet shachris kaimet ben abayim. Umafish la shleisha loigin, and also in addition, you're going to go ahead separate three loigin. Loigin mechza shachris, loigin mechza ben abayim. So money. So now it's going to be the usual shemen. So the Gemara wants to know Ilaim Rabbanon. If it's the Rabbanon, who said you should say a half, and now you're going to double to a whole. So why didn't you double by the shemen? Ella, it must be according to Abba Yossi ben Destoihi. Da machaviti koin gadol ba'alma shnei kamatzim ba'i ulevoina leihuch b'loi b'shem leihuch b'loi. It must be, when you're getting there's no double down whatsoever. The levoina is the normal amount of levoina. A kamitz in the morning and a kamitz in the afternoon, and the shemen is a normal amount of shemen, right? And the shemen is a normal amount of shemen. With the shemen laba Yossi ben Destoy lochach b'loi levenasu sham l'Rabbanan loichach b'loi. And according to Rabbanan, if according to Rabbi Yossi it wasn't doubled, according to Rabbanan it's also not doubled. Rav Yochanan halacha kabi Yossi ben Destoy. The halacha is like Rabbi Yossi ben Destoy that you're going to bring a full kaimetz of levain in the morning and a full kaimetz in the afternoon, and you're going to bring a half a leg, 1.5 leg of shemen in the morning, 1.5 leg shemen in the afternoon. Fred the Gemara, Umiyam Rabbi Yochanan hachi, Vam Rabbi Yochanan halacha kistam mishnah. The halacha is like a stam mishnah, v'tan chamish chamatzim kufav and beis. We said chamish chamatzim, right? And it doesn't consider these two kamatzim. So if you tell me Allah is like Rabbi Yossi ben the story, we should consider on the Mishnah and Daf Kafov these two kamatzim that were brought when the Kohen Gadol, right? It says the Gemara, not in the regular case, you don't consider these two kamatzim. It says Amroi Ninu Vali, but the Rabbi Yochanan. The Samach like Amroi according to Rabbi Yochanan. One says Allah is like Rabbi Yossi ben the story, and the other one says what? Allah is not like him. Hajan lechat cheles, Hajan lechat cheles, Hajan lechat cheles, and a Freilich and Shushan Purim from Yerushalayim Ir HaKodesh.